So, hello and welcome back, listeners, to another Candid Coffee. And today we have Candid Coffee with Marisa. I'm very excited to have Marisa join us today. Marisa was one of the first people that I'd heard of on the Veblen platform that had gained an apprenticeship with Veblen. So she was always the shining star out there, right? Who was doing great things with a couple of other folks and was always very inspired to learn more about Marisa. So Marisa is based in Singapore. She has been, part of her own business for a very long time and doing some incredible work with them. So Marisa, welcome to Candid Coffee and thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Thank you so much. And it's good to kind of like be part of this community and engaged with, things that are happening here. And thanks for asking me to kind of chat with you. Yeah.
You're welcome. I think interesting people make for very interesting conversations, Marisa. And as we've established just prior to us starting the podcast, you have a very interesting history. So I'm assuming we are going to have lots and lots of fun today on the podcast. So Marisa, just to share with us a little bit about your journey, your professional journey, to get to where you are today. And then talk us a little bit through the advisory board roles that you currently have.
Okay, great. So I think in my kind of personal background, I started off in the kind of design and innovation space. And that was predominantly working with large MNCs and multinationals and helping them with a lot of kind of strategy work, from kind of product development to brand strategy and kind of corporate identities and things like that. So that's where I started. And packaging and wayfinding. So a lot of kind of design related activities. And through my work, I felt like there was a lot of potential for impact. And that was often business impact, right? It wasn't very kind of socially or environmentally targeted or focused. But somewhere along the line, I think around the time of the global financial crisis, I had my own sort of existential crisis where I wanted to find out more about what I could do for positive impact. And so it was around that time that I kind of started re-examining my own journey and my own career. And so through that, I kind of, I guess, took a slight detour from the work that I was doing, working with large organizations, creating value, finding them ways to kind of create value for them, but thinking about how I could create broader value in society. And through that, I learned about something called permaculture, which is completely unrelated to kind of boards and the business world, actually, for most. It's really kind of a system of self-sufficiency and reducing your own personal impact, kind of regenerating biodiversity and soil and the earth, and living a completely different lifestyle. For some people, that's kind of living off the grid, and for some people, that's kind of growing your own food, but it's an entire system. And through that, I think I was looking for a way to combine what I'd learned in my kind of previous life, my education, my career prior to that, and to incorporate what I had learned around kind of the sustainability and permaculture. But at the time, it wasn't very clear because sustainability and ESG wasn't really something that people were interested in. And so it was quite challenging to kind of blend those things together and find a way to, I guess, earn a living and find a way to kind of incorporate that into my work. And so through that, for a period of time, I started, I guess, a small venture that was focusing on kind of, at the time, I didn't know it was this, but it was kind of sustainable business models. And it was a way to bring something more to business that was inherently missing for me. And that was kind of working to kind of help people eat a lower carbon diet, to make them aware of the benefits of plant-based eating, or kind of reduce their impact through the consumption, right, whatever that was. And so through that entire business was based on many of the principles we now see in sustainability, the circular economy, and systems thinking, and all those kinds of ideas. But at the time, it wasn't really known in that way. It was kind of just kind of green, or for some people, kind of that weird hippie stuff that a lot of people do. I wanted to raise the perception of plant-based eating as well, because I know I had a kind of bad reputation. I think the only decent that we knew of at the time was kind of decent vegetarian or plant-based food was, Indian vegetarian, which is delicious and accessible to the many, but it's not kind of it wasn't that mainstream in the sense of, you had to go to
Absolutely.
places. And it was through that kind of shifted. And that was a business I started in Thailand. We were working with organic farmers to try and kind of help them also bring their products and the benefits of their growing and rebuilding the soil and protecting the environment to, when I say the masses, that's not quite true, but to a wider audience. And it was through that we started this kind of venture. But at some point, for personal reasons, we moved to Singapore. And it was then that I think the environment in Singapore also then around 2015 wasn't really suitable for these ideas. There's no
Mm.
farming, or there was not very much farming in Singapore, not to the extent that Thailand, say, is an agricultural
Right.
society. So I had to find something else. And when I started thinking about my previous career and what I learned, I wanted to bring that to what I did, but that wasn't
Mm.
very easy to find at the time. And so, having searched a few organizations and consultancies and things like that's where the idea came, because there was nothing around. If you
No.
can't find what you need, you have to, or what you're hoping for, you have to kind of build it.
Yeah. To
And
build.
that was the vision for the business now, which is the sustainability led kind of collaborative consultancy that we have.
Excellent. That's very fascinating, and I love this journey. This journey driven by the. I mean, you start by saying an existential crisis, but driven by a desire to do something really good in the world, right? Which also, as I shared with you, Marissa, when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, these three key statements just stood out to me, right? Human centric. Um, Planet restorative, of course, from what you've just shared as well, and future vision. What is this world going to look like? I must be honest, as a vegetarian, it just speaks to me as much, right? But I hear your point around the world today is a very different place from the world 10 years ago, as an example, in how people would perceive plant-based cultures, etc. So tell me a little bit, Marissa, about why human-centric. That in particular just stood out to me. Why human-centric and plant restorative?
Mm. Actually, it's humanity centric, right? So it's a bigger
Yeah,
picture than human. Yeah. So actually, many people are familiar with the idea of human centered design. And
right.
my background was in kind of user, not necessarily digital at that point, but user experience, kind of putting what
Mm.
people need at the center of what you do. And actually, that's not a bad kind of starting point. And I think we realize that rather than having technology lead design and innovation and all the products and services that we create, that it should be human, or now humanity centered. I think we've got to a point in time where we have to think more about the collective, rather
Mm.
than just the individual. So whilst at a user level, yes, that's important, I think the idea that it's for the broader collective, for humanity, is something that's a distinction I think we need to start to make. There are so many other people on this planet, and I give in to the every whim I had or every desire I had, and we all behaved in that way. I think, well, I think many of us still do that to a certain extent, and I think that leads to some of the issues that we're facing with the climate crisis, loss of biodiversity, pollution, kind of erosion of societal values, all those kinds of things which sound
Right.
kind of very sort of morally driven. But I think there's a balance to be had in our own behavior and consumption and existence, I think.
Absolutely. I can see your passion for sustainability, Marissa, right? In how you speak, in the work that you do. Tell me how that's influenced your approach that you've taken on advisory boards. Because I know you've been very focused on ESG as well, or you've had a strong influence on ESG in Veblen. Share a little bit about that with us.
Yeah, so actually, to me, the kind of notion of being on a board was always really very foreign and disconnected, and not something that even on my sort of radar, right? In my mind, and I'm sure many of the people in the program will, I'm imagining, share a similar kind of sentiment, that it was always for a certain group of people who were who these positions and this thing was interesting to. And I think that's something that I had to make a change around. So through my work and just my own personal experience, seeing that in order to shift power bases and change systems at a level for, say, ESG or sustainability, you actually need to kind of be part of the system.
Right.
I think previously, and I still personally grapple with this like quite a lot. There's part of me that just wants to kind of go off on my own, do my own thing, become a hermit. I
Yeah.
practice yoga, like lead a kind of very solitary life, and just do what I want to do and make my life kind of easy. It's not easy, but the perception is you're kind of blocking out all the complications and complexity from your life that will enable you to do what you want to do.
Right.
What I found was that you kind of have to not play along with it, but you have to be part of the system to affect change. And I think we've had the same type of thinking in organizations, in business. I felt it too. If you think any differently from the status quo, whatever the status quo is within your environment, right, and that can vary depending on where you are, then the ideas will all be the same, and we'll be proliferating the same behaviors, the same outcomes, the same results
Need.
that we've seen. So it's a reluctant but now quite excited way for me to try and or exciting rather way to try and bring positive impact to my work at a slightly different level. If that makes sense, that's kind of the interest in seeing that actually in order to affect change, you need to operate at different levels, and that can be from the actions you take on a personal level, right, the things that you can control and do, and sort of everyday things, habits, to the more strategic things that happen in business. And I think business is a really good medium for change. It's one of those things where it's like when people say, something is inherently good or bad, it's not the thing that's good or bad. The thing just is, but it's how it's applied and used to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And so for me, personal experience also being female, and perhaps less so now as a minority because I'm in Singapore and it's predominantly kind of Asian based society, but kind of unfair advantages or unfair disadvantages and inequality for certain groups of people who don't fit the usual bill or who haven't traditionally held the power bases or the kind of credibility or value that I think can be brought by diverse groups of people within organizations.
I think, I'm just reflecting on what you've just shared now, Marisa, and especially around if you want to change the system, you have to be part of the system to make the change. You're either disrupting the system completely from the outside, or you infiltrating the system and then affording the change in the system. It reminds me a lot of, I had interviewed Michael a couple of podcasts ago, and he had also said, when you feel passionately about something, your ability to integrate within that system and change it is amplified, right? You don't really know whether you're going to make a change or not, but you've already given yourself a leg up to do it, which is incredibly powerful. So thank you for sharing that, I think, with us as well as how do we start to think about the change that we want to see? And how do we become part of that change right from the get-go? I'm just, as you were speaking, I was just thinking about the conversation we had about if we truly wanted to do something, we would do it, right? And this is what I'm hearing from you as well. This is so much a part of you, and therefore it drives your need and ability, your need to integrate within the system to change the system, which is exciting. So with that in mind as well, Marisa, tell us a little bit about your apprenticeship that you have with Veblen, because I know that was quite exciting.
Yeah, it was unexpected and exciting. I think I've known Callum actually for a number of years, from probably when I first arrived in Asia. So that was in 2005. And I was living in Thailand at the time. And I think, you kind of meet people, many people in your business dealings and in communities and things like that. And I'd always kind of seen a lot of things that Callum was doing, and they were always on this strange liminal space of in this liminal space of kind of being interesting and a bit edgy. um and so part of my interest was this of many of his the things that he's done before, but with his program I think it was kind of, okay, like I said to you, part of something that was connected to my work and something that I thought would be able to
Yeah.
amplify my impact. And so I think joining the program was, I was just thinking, oh, I just learn, listen, kind of take it in and see
Mm.
what comes of it. I hadn't thought much longer term. I thought, yes, it would be nice. It's like you kind of acquire, you hoard knowledge and experience and learning, and then you think one day you'll apply. And I'm usually very good at applying things, but I think for this, I think Callum had kind of said to me, if you're interested in this, this is something you could take on. And so with Ralph and Hettel as well, I thought it was a really good opportunity to kind of learn and apply with them. So I think Callum's Callum's kind of advice is, whenever you're doing these things is, you're just kind of, he didn't say kind of slowly making progress, but you're doing everything you can step by step to increase your value, the things that you can bring, the knowledge you can sort of learn, but also share.
Right.
So the apprenticeship was a really good place to start because it's it's a very new listed mid-cap company. It's not, a
Mm.
well-established one. He said, maybe the learning is different because you'll see things come sort of come to life rather than it being well established. So I think
Right.
there's a really good opportunity just to see that starting point, and to say, it's just one step closer and closer to each thing you're doing is a step kind of on your path of learning about being on boards and gaining
Mm.
knowledge from different businesses, which I aligns very much with how I approach most things. Like it's
Right.
not always clear. I can't always say I know the direction or I know that the end kind of outcome, but
Mhm.
obviously I feel for the most part there's a learning from everything. And so I think he encouraged us all to think about how we could do that. So yeah, it's exciting, but also like revealing, I think,
Hmm.
for me. So
I love that word revealing, all right, because it suggests to me a multitude of learnings that may have happened in this. So share with me your experience, as in what did you really enjoy? And also, what are the things that you didn't pan out the way you thought they would pan out?
okay, what do I really, I the group of people are really nice.
Right.
And I know you can't always guarantee that. I mean, not that people are
Yes.
horrible, but I think what I learned from even the early parts of the course, that the
Mm.
material and what we heard from the other people on boards and experts who have done this, is that it's not a guarantee that people are all aligned. It's a really
Sure.
easy interaction. They're really easy interactions, or that you it's a smooth journey, because everyone has their own viewpoint and their own perspective and their own interests, because they're different stakeholders. So
Mm.
I mean, on the personal level, the team is very nice, and professional. I enjoyed just seeing, it all just seems so mysterious. Like the whole thing of being on a board just seems so mysterious, right? That they're kind of meetings and official
Mm.
things have to happen and information and protocols that have to take place. So I think learning that has been interesting, because some of it is very, dare I say, mundane, and
Right.
some of it is very, oh, I had no idea. So being on the board, I think you get to have a mixture of seeing the reality of it, not just, it may sound to some people very glamorous for some reason,
Mm.
but it's actually very administrative, right? It's actually very structured. And but then amongst that, there's also no structure, because people are free, to a certain extent, free agents within that structure.
Yeah.
So I think that was interesting, learning all the ins and outs, right? Because you can hear about it, you can
Mm.
read about it, but just experiencing it is good. And just learning, right?
Right.
Learning is interesting. There's a degree of like reading and preparation, which if you're a busy person, you just have to learn to make time for that, to try and ensure that you're up to date with the information that's part of it. But also, I mean, sometimes if being an apprentice, obviously our role isn't quite so involved. So it's a lot of
Mhm.
observation and listening in.
Mm.
We still get a chance to kind of share our thoughts and contribute, but even just learning to listen and observe from a slightly different position, I think is good, because often when you're in
Right.
meetings, I usually have to either lead those meetings or contribute somehow. It's not
Absolutely.
you get to just observe.
And it really, observation is such a powerful tool, right? Because it allows you to zoom out of the conversation and watch the conversation happening itself, as opposed to just being a part of the conversation. And that I think is underutilized and underappreciated, how powerful that is to have a bird's eye view of what's going on. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. Yeah, and I think
So,
it doesn't it sorry, go on. I was gonna say it doesn't it's not as easy to do that, is it? I mean, even as an observer, like, you have to consciously get into that mode of taking a step back and seeing a bird's eye view. So I think you're
yeah.
spot
You're right. It's not an easy skill, yet it's one we all could benefit a little bit more from, even in our daily lives, right? Without a doubt, Marissa. So I want to know, Marissa, I mean, you also on an advisory board called WorkCap at this point, right? So you've got these two positions. I'd love to learn from you. What do you wish you had known before you joined an advisory board, right? So I know it's exciting. I know it's all the learnings, but we're walking into something really blind here, right? So what do you wish you had known?
it can be, not that you have to second, I mean, it's not to a point we have to second guess people, but I think having to work with people and not having a lot of information sometimes, and having to kind of think about things, and not that I'm making key decisions at the point, but just like having a comfort level of much less information than you would hope for.
Okay.
In my work, kind of consulting, you end up having to kind of do a lot of research and um, understanding of context, and whilst you do, I think nothing can prepare you for, oh well, there isn't that much information maybe, or this is the information that you've been given at a certain point, and these are things you have to kind of think about if you're doing it. um I wish I'd known. Yeah, I think it doesn't take a lot of time, in a sense of, like attending meetings. It's reading and then think, I mean, if you choose to think about it, right? Thinking about things, and depending how deep you go for your own sort of cognitive
Mm.
um, satisfaction, is, oh, what are the permutations of this, or what does this mean, or how does this affect different stakeholders?
Right.
You can kind of wind yourself into a complete ball, trying to sort of figure everything out. Not that you're trying to fix it, but I think there's a certain responsibility, and it's. I think I worry about the impact I'm having through the things I say, or the decisions I would make doing that, or the suggestions. Just my input, my overall input. Um, Other than that, I think it's not bad. And I've heard some sort of, some of the things that some of the other people were saying about what it can be like to be on boards.
Mm.
I haven't yet experienced any of the unpleasantness, um, which I'm very fortunate for, and I hope I never do. But I think inevitably human nature dictates that at some point, if you continue to kind of experience it, you experience that at every level, or any level in your daily interaction. So
Yeah.
um, you can't predict any of that, but I think that would be something that I would hope to be able to avoid, rather than that I knew ahead of time.
And that's true. And as you said, this is normal, right? You put a group of people together with different thought processes, different backgrounds, so making decisions in various different ways, and have different interests, right? Just which will drive where they'll put their emphasis, where they'll put their energies behind. You're bound to have tension, and tension is good. Tension is not bad. You just don't want the tension to spill into nastiness, right? But tension is generally good in that sense. But I love what you also shared is be prepared for um, as much or as little work as you would put in to be impactful on your board. Because I heard from you, which speaks to also, how you really went into the permaculture right in the beginning, when you told us, I'm almost going to say your origin story, Marisa, right? It was a little bit of an origin story in that. But when you shared that, I heard that you are somebody who, when you want to make a difference, will actually seek information. You will computate that information to ensure that you are thinking about it, and you would start to think about impact, outcomes and impact of that. And I can definitely see that in how you would approach an advisory board role or a board service role as well. So no, thank you for sharing that. Very, very insightful and exciting as well. So, Marissa, I also want to, shift gears a little bit more towards, you shared with us how you joined the Veblen Directorship Program as well. What are some of the benefits you are enjoying at the moment in the Veblen program? What are some of the things that excite you?
Oh, I think initially, like I said, I jumped into it without thinking that deeply. Like I kind of did, but didn't. Yeah, you kind of the other things that come with it. What I really like is that Callum himself
Mm,
is very open, and through that, it means that you get to interact, learn, and meet lots of different types of people, like
right.
from different places around the world, who all have perhaps a similar desire in terms of wanting to kind of affect change, who have probably experienced a degree of discrimination or adversity,
Mhm,
or who want to contribute to something, outside of their usual work or something like that. I've really enjoyed learning about like all this more formal board business stuff is something that I haven't had a lot of exposure to. Even working with businesses is a very different way, and learning more about kind of internal controls and governance, and what that means in practice. Because a lot of sustainability and ESG in businesses talk about those. And for different organizations, different sizes, it can look very different. So I think all that learning that you get from and things around kind of stock markets and shareholders, that's all thing stuff that's very unfamiliar to me as well. I kind of know it at a high level. So I think that's been actually a real benefit. It's kind of helped me to open a part of my own experience and knowledge that has kind of been ignored or not
right.
haven't really applied myself to. Learning and meeting lots of different people. And I think just thinking about things not always from a doing perspective. So
Mm,
as a consultant, I'm always tempted to, oh, I know the answer to this problem, or I think I know the answer to this problem,
right.
or if we can just do this, this, and this. And I think one of the things that has been challenging, but I've enjoyed, is it as kind of encourages you, like you're not there as a consultant, right? You can share what you think and and your experience, which is good, but you're there to ultimately like represent the other stakeholders in the business and hold the other people accountable for that. And actually in my work a lot, I do it naturally, but not been appointed that that position or kind of that
Mm,
role. And so I think learning to give voice to people who don't normally have it for whatever reason, be that they're not in the room, they're not part of the process, I think is actually something I enjoy and that I also take very seriously. Like I want it to be sort of with a true intent rather than kind of
mm,
just thinking about one group of people or one position. It gives you a chance to learn to think for different perspectives as well. um and yeah, just seeing the community grow, actually. Like I've had a lot of people reach out to me, like yourself included, where you have this shared experience of trying to learn more about being on a board, trying to find out what that means, how it can fit into your work. I think that's been really interesting as well, because there's always been a distance in often people who are on boards, right? They're like
Right.
these very senior looking people. Maybe you can't really relate to them, and it's
Mm.
this special club. And this feels like, oh, and anybody can be part of this club if they can find what value they can bring, and share that with the organization they're on. Then that's quite empowering, I think.
Oh, I love that. In what you've just shared now, Marissa, it struck me when you said um, anyone can be part of. So this program is quite empowering in that it opens you up to the possibility of being part of a board. I constantly think about the idea that you can't be what you can't see. Right. So if there's no role model for you to demonstrate that this is possible, it's challenging. Not that it can't happen, but it's challenging for people. So it's really exciting to be in a situation or in a position like you've shared right now, where that is the program's galvanized towards making you see what is possible. And I think that's really, really amazing. But Marissa, this has been such a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey, your thoughts. And I love the candidness that you shared, what's worked, what hasn't worked. I'm going to share with you three things that I've taken away from this conversation, right, which I think is, for me, extremely powerful. And I love, having guests on Candid Coffee because everyone's bringing their own perspectives, but you actually are cultivating um, a set of insights that become unique insights from each person. And if you aggregate those insights, they tell such a powerful story at the end, right? So from you, I think the first one, which has struck me, and I'm going to steal your words with pride, Marissa, right? I'm going to steal them with pride, is that you have to be in the system to change the system, right? And speaks to this conversation we just had about what Veblen offers as well. But most importantly, I think for me, it speaks to what you said. You can decide you want to make an impact, and you can by maybe trying to disrupt the system, or you can join the system and change the system from within as well, which I think both routes are possible. This route sounds for me it's really interesting. Enter the system to change the system. What I also heard from you, especially when you were sharing about you having in these advisory roles, you may not have all the information that you need to make decisions, is to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? To recognize that it's going to be uncomfortable at times. You're not going to have all of the information, but you have to be guided by some principles in how you make those decisions, right? So I love that. And the third one, which is a common theme through our entire conversation, is how much people matter to you. You've shared what you've loved about advisory boards is that you're working with really cool people, right? Good people, nice people. I think sometimes we underestimate or we've minimized this word nice when people are good with each other. It matters at the end of the day. We make better decisions because of it, because we collaborate better. So change the system from within, join it, is what I've heard from you. Become comfortable with being uncomfortable. You will never have all the information, and people matter, which I think tells me a lot about the human-centric approach that, or humanity-focused approach that you have taken as well, Marissa. Marissa, yeah, is there any last words you'd like to leave us with?
I don't think so. I think you've done a really good job of asking me questions and leading the conversation and kind of helping, I think, the rest of the community to kind of see from different perspectives what's going on. So thank you for being a great listener as well, and kind of picking up on interesting things that hopefully other people can use and take with them. So thank you, and thanks for reaching out.
Oh, thank you, Marissa. So, listeners, yeah, it was very exciting to have Marissa join us today, and especially to have one of the first members of Veblen being with us on this journey. The community, of course, has grown now to more than 130 odd people as of today that we are speaking. But it is fascinating to think how quickly it's grown and how it will continue to grow. But I think equally as fascinating is the quality of people that it brings into the community. And Marisa is a prime example of the quality of people that it brings in. So thank you for joining me today on Candid Coffee with Marisa. And I look forward to having you join me on another Candid Coffee later on in the coming weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.